It's able to handle different types of document formats, and when needed, it can convert the document formats. An example of that is when you're emailing out of an ERP, you're generally going to be emailing a PDF file. That PDF file would need to be converted to a print format in order to print it on a laser printer. So something like PCL5, PCL6, or PostScript. CirrusPrint can do that conversion automatically. But perhaps more important, it also recognizes those raw print formats and can pass those straight through to the printer. And that allows it to maintain some of that printer control functionality like tray and duplex control. And also if there's any precision needed, like for barcode scaling or especially micro fonts, those have to be precise. And it's important that the raw print data not be modified or scaled or anything like that. So that's an important feature as well, particularly for UnForm users where people are printing checks or barcoded documents, and you want what UnForm produces to get to the printer unchanged. Another feature is uses some compression techniques that are unique to CirrusPrint, object compression being the main one. What that means is we look for specific types of things that will be embedded in documents over and over again. So like logo, images, embedded font files, and so forth. And we can really improve performance by not sending those more than one time, no matter how many documents use them. And then last, there's fault tolerance built in, particularly in the client side, where it does understand the ability to reconnect if it loses a connection to the server, and that's all just automatic. Now this CirrusPrint was originally designed out of a need when people started to move UnForm to the cloud. They were wondering, how do we print our documents? So it was designed for that purpose, and the two standard ways that we used to be able to send documents to CirrusPrint was through a network port or a directory monitor, and UnForm can route things to both those sorts of input sources for CirrusPrint. And then also in version 10, and then we just backported to a brand new version of 9, there's direct device using that API I mentioned. So the UnForm command line, the -O option, has a format that recognizes a CirrusPrint target, so a location and a device. And then there's also the deliver command has a CirrusPrint target where you can specify again the location and device. Again, these are built into version 10, and we backported them in fact, we released it this past Monday in response to this coronavirus thing. We know we've got a lot more customers on version 9 than 10 at this point, and we wanted to make this available because it does save quite a bit of configuration effort. Just makes things a lot simpler if you're printing from UnForm to a CirrusPrint device. CirrusPrint is administered with a web browser. This will be part of our demo, but there's a little screenshot for you. A quick rundown on what you would set up when you first install CirrusPrint. It is multi-company or multi-tenant design, so the first thing you do is you create a company, and then you can have multiple locations within companies. So you create a location, then you install the client out at that location and configure it to connect back up to the server. At that point, chances are good you'll have to open that one firewall port so that the client can get to the server. Default port is 8483. It can also use standard HTTPS port if you've got a dedicated machine, so no other web server on that machine. And we include a self-signed certificate by default, but you can configure a public certificate, and then you don't get the nag screens when you connect to it with the browser. The location client runs on Windows and Linux. Nearly all of our customers install the clients on Windows, but it does run on Linux. It's a command line tool on Linux, but there's a graphical environment to set up and configure on Windows. Once it's installed, any number of devices can be supported by that client. It's quite low overhead. We actually use CirrusPrint in our office because we have a cloud accounting system, and we print locally in our office, at least when we're there, which we haven't been lately. We use a little teeny Windows 10 PC. We bought it for about $150 off of Amazon, and it works just fine. And that supports our office printers. You connect the client using HTTPS typically up to the server. You don't need a VPN, but of course VPNs is just a network layer, so it will work over a VPN if that's what you already have. There's no extra printer configuration or anything like that. The printers that exist on that PC where the client is installed are all available to print to through CirrusPrint. When it connects, it uploads a list to the server to help with configuration. So locations can support multiple output devices. Typical ones are print queues. So your standard Windows printer names are those devices. It can also output directly to a network printer at its address, just a TCP IP address. Supports outputting to files on that remote PC or remote location. And there's a lot of substitution tags available to help you build a unique file name or a meaningful file name out at the client, including auto sequencing. And then, pardon me, and then we can also run programs out at the client with the file that was delivered to the client as a command line argument. And then important here, known print formats. So those things that CirrusPrint will either convert to or pass through include PCL 3 through 6, PostScript, and PDF. And then there's also a feature where the remote client can print PDFs through the local print driver, which is a good thing for very low-end printers like GDI printers, and also exotics like label printers and things like that, things that don't support the normal print languages for document printers. Once you've configured the output devices for a location, then you decide how do you want to get documents to those printers. There are input source ports. That's just where CirrusPrint server is just behaving like a network printer. So any normal operating system configuration for printer can print to a TCP network printer. CirrusPrint can be that printer. There's also directory monitoring, so you can drop files into a directory and CirrusPrint will pick it up and route it to the correct device. And then there's also email sources. That requires a dedicated mailbox, and CirrusPrint will access that using IMAP. And this allows you to set up any number of output devices to go through a single mailbox, because you can utilize aliases, mail aliases, or mail groups that target a location and device ID right in the to address, or else you can also use subject tags and body tags. But the most common thing is to just build a to address that includes location ID and a dot and a device ID. And then using that API, UnForm can also be an input source for CirrusPrint and can deliver things directly to a device through the deliver command or the -O argument with a CP : location ID : and device ID format. Again, this requires UnForm 9036 or UnForm 10. Now, to configure UnForm, it's pretty straightforward. There's a new CirrusPrint section in the deliver INI file. You may need to copy that from the deliver INI SDS file if you have an existing deliver INI, because it doesn't get replaced. Copy the CirrusPrint section in there and set up the server equals line and a login, which is location ID, an @ sign, and the company ID, and then a password. And then UnForm will be able to connect to CirrusPrint and use the API to send documents through it. Another component that supports the API is our web extension. You can configure that so that any PDF that you view on any site or specific sites can be sent to any CirrusPrint output device in your company. So similar to the UnForm configuration, you just connect it to the CirrusPrint server and you give it the login and password information, and then whenever you are in a PDF viewing mode, we present that PDF in a custom viewer with a button that allows you to print to any of those CirrusPrint output devices. And just a note here, our extension has only been available in Chrome for a long time, but Microsoft is updating their Edge browser to use the Chrome engine. And that's available today if you go and look for it. And it's also going to be part of their regular deployment for Edge, the Edge browser. I think I've heard this summer. So it's just going to be available to people and they'll be able to use that browser in addition to Chrome. Okay, so I'm going to jump out to the demo here. Let me just minimize this guy. Okay, so here's our CirrusPrint server. And I mentioned there's multiple companies. This demo machine we've got running out in the cloud has just our own company here. The SDSI company has quite a few locations set up. One in particular is this Allen PC location. That's my laptop. And we can actually see the client on my laptop here that's connected up to that server and logging in using my Allen PC login. And there's output devices. So you can see these are divided up by the different locations. I have 4 output devices configured. I've got a file device called CP Files, and I've got my home printer called Home PTR. These devices are known to CirrusPrint by their location ID and their device ID. So AllenPC.HomePTR, for example, is the printer here at my house, the Talon printer. Oh, and by the way, I am doing this from my house because like everybody else, I'm at home. So I'm running this. We only have DSL out here, so it's a relatively low bandwidth connection. But I'm using a live environment here with my own printer. And just so you see here, there's this Talon printer that's on my PC. That's my home printer here. It's just a little inkjet printer. And let's see. Other thing here is got a CP Files device that is a file output type. And here's an example of that rich naming convention where we've got substitution tags. I've got my desktop folder tag, hard-coded CP files, and then we're picking up the base name of the file that's being delivered, an auto sequencer, and a file extension. And that is this directory right here on my desktop. So let's go to input sources. So you can see we've got quite a few here, and I'm going to sort them by ID. Actually, I'll sort them by source here. So we can see we've got several directory sources here, which are kind of file drops. And anything dropped into one of these will target a particular device. Same with ports. These are those network print ports. They can target a particular device. So like if I print to port 10,005, this will go to my CP files target device. Then we've got an email source here. Now this is, again, you can have one email source that services any number of printers. We have one called printers@synergetic-data.com. The dedicated email address, you can't share email addresses with a user because CirrusPrint will keep this inbox clean. It'll throw away things that it wants to not print. It'll pick up everything and delete it and print it if it's supposed to print it. We support whitelists, so you can ensure that only things that come from known sources get printed. And to give you an idea of what I mean by aliases or mail groups, this is our an alias that we set up on our mail server. lnpc.homeptr is an alias. And these are meaningful. The lnpc is the location ID, the home PTR is the device ID, and those are going to be delivered to printers@synergetic-data.com. So an alias going to this monitored inbox. You can do the same thing with mail groups. That's what you actually have to do out on Office 365 because it supports aliases, but it rewrites the to address that we look at. So we have to use a mail group in that case. And it works the same way. You've got a group and its only member is the mailbox that we're monitoring. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you. I will send to my home printer. Grab a PDF file here, and I'll send that. And that goes up through the, from my PC up to the mail server. CirrusPrint is monitoring that mailbox, and it downloads it and delivers it through the client to my printer. Now, email does take 10 or 15 seconds. Kind of depends on your mail server and just the overall internet load. Okay, so here's the document landed in my printer. I can do something similar to email a file to a file target. So let's send it instead to this alias. So we'll wait for that to route its way through email. Okay, there it is. So there's the file I just delivered to the folder. And again, that was going through this email to a specific output device. OpenPTR in the first case, CP files in the second case. Okay, so let's get on to using UnForm. So I've got an UnForm server out in the cloud. I'm going to use the design tool just because that's a simple way to demonstrate this. I've got a sample rule set here. First thing I'm going to do is test print And you can see my output device is CP colon, LNPC colon, home PTR, and then there's an optional fourth element here that's just simply a title for the job. So when I run this, it runs the job and it shows up quite a bit more quickly because we're using the API instead of relying on mail routing. So that was a -O option, essentially, doing a direct output to a CirrusPrint target. We can also use the deliver command. I'll uncomment these lines here. So our target name is CirrusPrint. Location ID is LNPC, and the device ID, CP files. And of course, these can be set dynamically however you need them to be controlled by your rule file. And my deliver command is going to go to that CirrusPrint target. It's going to grab a document ID off of the document and send it to this location and device. So let me just preview now, and the deliver command will run. And it's right here, 5138 PDF. So that's using the deliver command, and again, that's using the API. And then one other thing I wanted to show you was the web extension. One way to do that is I'm going to use the demo of QuickBooks Online. Take their test drive. I'm not a robot. Glad it agrees. Okay, so here's their invoices. I'll go ahead and pick a couple of these and do print. Now that will build a PDF file. And so here's our web extension. You can see there's this button here to submit it to CirrusPrint. So I'm going to go ahead and print that to my printer here. And there it is. So that's how you can use CirrusPrint via the web extension to basically take any sort of document that can be displayed in the browser as a PDF and print it to any of the devices in your company. Okay, so that's our demonstration. So let's complete the presentation here. So a quick summary: we use CirrusPrint to simplify remote printing out to distant printers from wherever your application is running, whether that's from the cloud ERP systems out to local offices, your local offices to remote worker locations like I'm doing here. Basically anywhere to anywhere, you just need to be able to connect a client up to the CirrusPrint server. Another important feature is that it's centralized configurations through that web browser interface for the administration. You don't need to go out to all the individual locations and configure anything there other than installing that lightweight client. It's fast and secure. We use HTTPS for the transmission of the documents. You can use your own mail account instead of, say, an ePrint mail account that the various print vendors offer. So you have predictable performance, and also you don't need to worry about data collection or anything like that by those third parties. And then it also uses existing hardware, so you can email your printers without buying email-capable printers. So any existing printer will work. It also runs on existing computers if you want. It's very common to install it right on the same machine as an UnForm server. And the client runs on any Windows PC, starting with versions, Windows 7 or Windows 2008. It doesn't have to be a server. It could just be a repurposed PC or like we use in our office, a newly purchased very low-end PC, or it can run on Linux. We license it by the number of output devices, and those devices include the printers and the file outputs and the program output. So basically any configured device except for, I don't know if you noticed, each location gets a free auto send device, input source and output path. And we do sell it through as a SaaS license through monthly or annual licenses. And there's also an AWS Marketplace edition of CirrusPrint, and it's a little bit different in its licensing. You're basically paying by the hour based on how big of a machine you run it on, and we don't count the devices in that case. Okay, so John, would you like to jump in here?
I had to unmute myself. Okay, so yes. Now, did we want to do any Q&A prior to kind of this wrap-up slide, or we're going to do that afterwards? Just to generate some of the things, I'm not seeing any questions posted thus far, but for those that have interest, as Alan said, it's a SaaS solution by month or year, licensed by the output devices that are going to be necessary. It's available through our reseller channel. It's also available to our SDSI direct customers. And we are offering special pricing. As we all know, there's the impact of everything that's having to be done just to act normal anymore and to carry on business as usual. A lot of things are unexpected in terms of cost. So there is special pricing going to be made available for any new customers or customers that are currently using UnForm and want to integrate CirrusPrint with UnForm itself. So if you contact your sales rep, the existing sales rep that you may have, both that goes for the direct customers and also partners, they'll provide the details on the special options available to you. And our hope is that sharing this technology can just help get through some of the hiccups that are occurring with people out there trying to all of a sudden work remote and losing functionality with printers and routing of documents and things of that nature. But if you don't know who your sales rep is, you can just shoot an email to sales@synergetic-data, and we will make sure it gets to the right person.
Synergetic-data.com.
Wow, we left the .com off. How bad is that? It's not a requirement that you have UnForm in order to use this product. UnForm gives you an easier way to integrate it, but printing can be done from virtually any application using CirrusPrint once it's configured as he showed you with the QuickBooks set.
And there is a free trial that you can download and install yourself. Feel free to email our support ticket system for questions, support@synergetic-data.com.
Thank you for attending, and hope we can answer any questions you might have down the road.